The midterm exam awaits for the Michigan Wolverines. Are they ready? We're about to find out. Next on Michigan Podcast.
But there's going to be one team that's going to play solely as a team. No man is more important than the team. No coach is more important than the team. The team, the team, the team.
Looks deep for Anthony Clark. Waits for it. Hip. Caught.
This is no time for that. In the pocket and a sack. Tim Jamison.
Brady gets terrific. Throws it and a touchdown. Knight again. Schultz just before Brazil got him. And a leaping interception by Woodson.
Harbaugh back to throw over the middle. Caught by Collier at the 5 on his feet. Touchdown, Michigan. On its way. It's good.
He's 5'7", 179 pounds, a junior at Michigan. But Jamie Morris packs a wallop, and he delivers for Bo Schembechler.
And here's your first play. Pressure coming. Sack. It is Glenn Steele, number 81, who fought his way through the traffic.
Option. And Robinson calls his own number, and he's going to score. Oh, an easy touchdown for Robinson and Michigan.
Win it. We're going to win the championship again because we're going to play as a team. And when we play as a team and the old season is over, you and I know it's going to be Michigan again. Michigan.
Go Blue, I'm Steve Deace. Welcome to this week's episode of Michigan Podcast. My partners over at Wolverine Digest, Brandon Brown and Michael Spath, will be joining us here shortly. But we begin with what I believe is not just the defining stretch of this season, but very well of the Harbaugh era. Back-to-back games this week against top 10 teams. One at home, that's Notre Dame a week from now. But the far more important game, because it's a Big Ten game, is this weekend in Happy Valley against number 7 Penn State, a place that has not been a happy place for Michigan in recent years, particularly their last trip there. Harbaugh got the win in year 1, but the last time Michigan went there for the whiteout at night, it was UGLY. You ain't got no alibi, you ugly. Hey, hey. You ugly. 42-13. In fact, that's been the recent trend in this series. The home team the last 3 years in a row has won this thing going away in a blowout. Michigan in 2016 and 2018. Penn State there the year in between, 2017. Then there are the trend lines for Michigan, and they're all bad. Jim Harbaugh, all-time at Michigan, 0-7 as an underdog. 0-7. 0-7. Is that bad? Maybe. How about the fact Michigan has not defeated a top 10 team on the road since September of 2006, when Michigan beat number 2 Notre Dame 47-21. That's a long drought. A very long drought. Well, you throw in those trend lines, and it doesn't look good for the good guys. Then there's the actual data. Michigan is 84th in the nation in total offense, despite having already played 3 teams ranked 100th or worse in total defense. Middle Tennessee, Rutgers, and Illinois. Uh-oh. Shea Patterson is the 66th ranked passer in the country, despite the fact he's played Rutgers and Illinois 2 out of the last 3 games. Yikes. Michigan has 17 fumbles to lead the nation. That's really what it does best this season. Fumble the ball. 17 fumbles by 12 different guys. They've lost 9 of them. That's right. 12 different players have fumbled for Michigan. 12, folks. 12. That's when it becomes a contagion now. It's in your head collectively as a team. And you saw that when Michigan started dropping the ball again, up 28-0 against Illinois, and suddenly the Illini scored 25 in a row. Because, folks, you don't just march in to Illinois Memorial Stadium in front of a daunting crowd of 37,000 and change, half of which are Maize and Blue fans, and not expect to, at some point, wither under the difficult and oppressive road environment those biting Illini fans uniquely provide visitors. So there's that. I'd like to be optimistic. But as much as I like to be optimistic, I like lying to you even less. I am not optimistic. In fact, when I look at the data out there, I cannot come up with a way using evidence that Michigan can win this game. That's not because I think Penn State's insurmountable. I don't. I think when you look at, you throw away the fact they have an FCS opponent, you get a huge amount of stats playing Idaho. That doesn't tell me anything. You might as well have played Ida Pimp. You know, I mean, that's a nothing burger. But they're competent. And I don't think they're that much better than Michigan. I just think Michigan is that much more self-destructive. I think Penn State is a grittier team, a more competent team, and they're playing at home in what odds makers say next to LSU on a Saturday night is the most difficult environment. It's worth about a touchdown at home as a point spread in that primetime whiteout. And so this is really more about Michigan than Penn State. I think Penn State's pretty good. I don't think they're anything close to the team they had 2 years ago with Saquon Barkley and Trace McSorley, though. But Michigan just has never taken a step forward this season. Think about it. We're halfway through the year, and you don't feel better about Michigan after a game than you did beforehand after any of these games. Not even the game against Iowa they won, because you saw what that offense was. Offensive. And they can't stop fumbling the ball. Shea Patterson's best game this year, he was 11 for 22. Here's the only way Michigan wins this game. The only way Michigan wins this game is if all of the things we had hoped, or at least many of them, I mean, you don't have to play a perfect game to beat Penn State. You also cannot play the hold my beer game to beat Penn State either, that Michigan has played most weeks. Look, Ma, no hands, okay? What needs to happen is most of the things we had hoped for and expected going into this season need to just click. We need to see the offense actually hit its stride. If that were to happen, then I think Michigan can win, and they will. I just don't know how you can predict that to happen. I mean, at some point, there's too much talent on this team. You just play 12 games, and eventually you're going to put it together. You may not be able to make it consistent. You may not have the leadership, the discipline to make it your consistent brand. But on a given Saturday, when you have this many good players, eventually you throw the footballs out there, something really good's going to happen. It's just a matter of how many games you lose before you figure that out. Well, they can't lose this one. You lose here, you're 0-2 in the Big Ten, or you're down to your second loss in the Big Ten, and you're essentially out of the race. So, once again, no margin for error. Once again, the season on the line for the Michigan Wolverines, and I don't have any faith left when it comes to Michigan. My faith is all set is reserved for Jesus. When in this arena, the M stands for Missouri. I'm from there. You got to show me. Well, I'm from the state right north of there, but close enough to Missouri. You've got to show me, Because based on the evidence, there's no case that Michigan can win this game. Based on the hope of what we thought this team and expected it to be, if they were to put it together, they could. I just don't know how you can predict hope, especially when in the biggest of games, this Michigan program has sadly had too much of a tendency to stomp on your hope just when you were about to acquire it. I mean, think back, it was a year ago, well, a little less than a year ago, because Michigan and Penn State last year played in November. But it was this game a year ago that this show became a GIF. I took the Kool-Aid after that 42-7 curb stomp of the Nittany Lions. Do you remember that? Good times. Hey, I want to introduce you to a brand new partner of ours here at Michigan Podcast, Hero Soap Company. Check these guys out. Veteran-owned soap company. Sign up for a subscription and get soap delivered right to your door each and every month. 3 different options starting at just $5 a month, all the way up to the Battalion package, or as I like to call it, the Buckeye package. 3 bars of soap each month for those Buckeye fans out there who need some extra help getting that stink off. The best part of this is Hero Soap Company donates a portion of each purchase to help veterans and active military, something all of us can unite behind, Wolverines, Buckeyes, Sparties alike. Use the promo code Michigan Podcast and get 10% off of your order. Promo code Michigan Podcast, all one word, and get high quality soap without having to go to the store. Hero Soap Company. Check them out online at herosoapcompany.com. Let freedom clean. Back here on Michigan Podcast, joined now by Brandon Brown and Michael Spath from WTKA and Ann Arbor, as well as WolverineDigest.com. Gentlemen, welcome back to Michigan Podcast. Good to have you with us. How are you?
Doing good. Doing great.
Well, let's begin with where I think this is the pivotal stretch here, defining stretch of the Harbaugh era. I think what happens these next 2 weeks could go a long way to determining what the next 3, 4, 5 years of Michigan football looks like. Back-to-back games against top 10 teams, one of them a rival that you demanded to be put back on the schedule, even if it meant putting them on it at the absolute worst freaking possible time in Notre Dame. But first, the key road game at Penn State. Everybody knows all the stats. I started them off with the top of the show. Game day is going to be there, so we're going to hear 0-7 as an underdog, hasn't won a road game against a top 10 team as a program since Notre Dame in 2006. We know all of these things. So this is kind of the midterm exam these next 2 weeks. Michael, I'll start with you. Based on the prep work we've seen the first 6 weeks, how prepared do you believe the Wolverines are for this test?
I think it depends on the side of the ball. I think the defensive side of the ball is much better prepared than the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, even with a little bit of the little bump that they had against Illinois last week, overall this defense has been trending positively in the right direction for the last couple of weeks. They have found some playmakers, which they didn't have in the first couple of games. Kwity Paye, who's expected back this week after missing a game with an injury, has been lights out the last couple of weeks at defensive end. Cam McGrone provides that speed and athleticism in the middle of the defense that Devin Bush has in the past. They've got terrific cornerbacks, some of the best cornerbacks in college football, and really solid safeties. This is a defense that could hold Penn State to 21 points or less. I really truly believe that on Saturday. And then special teams, as long as Jim Harbaugh understands that Jake Moody is his kicker, I think Michigan is good there. And offensively, really, does anybody have any idea what we're going to see on Saturday from the offense? Is Shea Patterson going to be the gamer that appeared briefly at the end of the Illinois game and appeared in the past against Michigan State and Northwestern? Or is it going to be the guy that was completely overwhelmed at Wisconsin earlier this season and really struggled against Iowa? We just don't know. Is the running game the one that came alive against Illinois? Is it going to appear, or was that just a one-game anomaly because Illinois is so bad at everything defensively? So I think Michigan's going to stay in this game because of their defense and special teams, and then it's just going to come down to whether or not the offense can do something they haven't done all year, and that's play consistent football, put some big plays out there, and just go out and win a football game. I mean, really, the defense has won a lot of these football games. The defense won the Army game. The defense won the Iowa game. The defense, really did its job, against Illinois last week at the end of it when they needed it. So I think it really comes down to that, which offense shows up, and here we are 6 games in the season, and nobody really knows yet.
Brandon, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with everything Michael said. I like what the defense has been doing lately. If they can get back to full strength with Kudipay and Lavert Hill, most notably back in the lineup this week, that would obviously bode well. On the radio today, we went through kind of a position-by-position breakdown comparing Michigan and Penn State, and it's really pretty close in a lot of regards. I mean, there was some that Michigan would have the edge, and others Penn State would have the edge. But, really, you could almost make an argument for a push at just about every position, and that kind of speaks to the way both of these programs have recruited. So talent-wise, there's not a huge gap in either direction, and I've been beating that drum for a long time that Michigan and Jim Harbaugh haven't really beaten a team where the talent gap was negligible or where, Michigan wasn't really supposed to win the game. And right now they're the underdog in this one. They're on the road. So all those signs point to what we've seen many times in the past, and that's that Michigan's not going to be as prepared as they need to be. Past performances don't necessarily have anything to do with upcoming tests, but Jim Harbaugh himself likes to say, after three or four times of seeing something, that's a habit. And, unfortunately, his own line kind of bites him in the butt on this one because the habit that we've seen is that they don't fare very well in these games. So I think Michigan's got the talent. I think the defense is going to be up to the task, but I think Michael hit it right on the head. We just don't know what we're going to get with that offense, and that's really kind of a bummer 6 games into the season with all the senior leadership that you have on the all line and with Shea Patterson and the experienced guys at wide receiver. The only young, inexperienced group on the team is running back, and they haven't been to the moon either. Jay Harbaugh's been using kind of a weird rotation. Nobody seems to know who's going to be the guy week to week, and just kind of a bummer that 6 weeks in we're still trying to figure out what this offense is and hoping that the defense can keep the game close enough for maybe that offensive side of the ball to steal one in Happy Valley.
Brandon, does the offense come out of Champaign, Illinois, after taking Illinois' best shot, and I can't believe I even said those words out loud, but they did give up 25 points in a row. And then Shea led, I thought, the first take command of this team drive that he has orchestrated all year long. I mean, and that was the next drive, 10 plays, 70 yards, some nice passing in there, some mobility from Shea. Can you take any confidence from that situation if you're Michigan? Or do you look at also the fact that on must-pass downs, Shea was 1 for 9, which the conditions had something to do with that, but still 1 for 9 is atrocious. He threw an ugly almost interception on a botched screen. Ben Mason was underthrown on a pretty cleverly devised play that probably would have gone for a touchdown. That was the one where he gave the shoulder shimmy that cost Michigan any points on that with the personal foul. Then there was the fumbled mesh on the very first snap of the second half. We were just listening to Tom Luganbill say, guys, I just talked to Jim Harbaugh coming out of the locker room, and he said the key for his team was to start fast offensively, and a nanosecond later, they fumble the mesh point, and it's a 4-yard loss, and it's 3 and out. So do you look at how he ended this game with any confidence? Do you think that gives you confidence going into this environment, or does it still just seem like it's sputtering? Brandon, what do you think? You talked to those guys this week. What did you see?
I still think it's sputtering. I just don't know how you can look at even what they did. I mean, it started off really well, running the ball down Illinois' throat, doing whatever they wanted to do on the ground, and this kind of leads into another point that we talked about on the radio and that Michael brought up over the weekend during and after the game. I mean, Hassan Haskins comes in, he scores from 29 yards out on his first run. Then he has a 2-yarder, I think, and then a 28-yarder and an 8 or 9-yard run in there. So in his first 4 runs, he has about 70 or more yards, and then he doesn't touch the ball again for 36 plays. It's just like, what is the offense doing? Like, where's the continuity? Where's the stacking up plays for more successful plays later on down the road? Michael talked about that with the domino analogy before, and it just, I know it was good while it was good, and there were some bad parts too in the weather, and the receivers had some drops, and there were a few fumbles, but like, that's all part of it. Like, you can say, like, well, it was pretty good except for this, or pretty good except for that, but those exceptions are a part of the offense. And unfortunately, we've seen it just about every single week. So I know it was a 17-point win. I know they got up to a big lead at the beginning of the game, but like you said, Illinois did give them their best shot and made it a game late in the second half. I just don't know how you can feel confident with what the offense is doing after seeing it week in, week out, where it hasn't been all that good. It hasn't been clean. It hasn't been explosive. And they haven't really scored that many points against teams that it feels like they should have. So to answer the question bluntly, no, I'm not confident. Maybe the players are. I hope they are. And they're saying they are, but I just, outside of a couple of guys, I don't know how they can look in the mirror and say, yeah, we're doing exactly what we need to do on offense.
Michael, same question to you. I mean, that drive, the way the game ended, to be fair, it's the first time Shea Patterson carried this team as opposed to holding them back at any critical juncture this season. Do you think you gain any confidence from that, or were the errors still so systemic that there's really no way of telling, as Brandon pointed out?
I hope he gained some confidence from that. I think he maybe showed again some of those flashes of the quarterback. I go back to 2 games last year, the Michigan State game in the second half. Obviously, he had the dagger, the 75-yard touchdown pass down to Peoples-Jones, but it was also him running the football on read option plays to pick up first downs. That was critical to success in winning that game in East Lansing. Same thing against Northwestern. Late in the game, they're trying to come back. He had some nice runs. He had some great throws, including that third down pass to Zach Gentry that he fit between a couple people. I mean, in those moments, you said, "Wow, this guy's a gamer. This guy, when the chips are down, he backs up against the wall, whatever cliche you want to use. This is the guy that you want as your quarterback because he finds a way to get the job done." And really, we haven't seen that at all this season. Mm-hmm. We didn't see it against Middle Tennessee. We didn't see it against Army. We certainly didn't see it against Wisconsin. Even in the blowout against Rutgers, we didn't see stuff like that. And finally, in that fourth quarter against Illinois, when they found themselves in a 3-point game, I mean, that was arguably the best drive he's had all season. And so maybe that guy will come out against Penn State, and because they'll feel like, hey, we are underdogs, we're on the road. I know it didn't go very well against Wisconsin, but they've beaten Penn State a couple of times. Jim Harbaugh's been hyping up and putting the confidence into his quarterback. So that's the hope. And if that happens, then honestly, Michigan could be pretty good on Saturday. But I really think that Shea Patterson, the key to him is running the football early. I've tracked in the 6 games so far, I think there's only 1 game where he has ran the ball more than twice in the first half. And that's just not good enough. He's made a couple of plays late in the game. He did against Iowa. He did against Illinois this past week. When he's running the football, but he's got to embrace that earlier in the game, and something about like him running and getting hit, feeling football. Jim Harbaugh always talks about being a football player. I think Brady Hoke used to say he likes to feel football. I think Shea Patterson, when he feels it, when he feels himself getting hit, when he feels the other team, I think that really gets him energized. And I'd like to see him run the football a little bit earlier in the game against Penn State. I think that could really help him out.
Michael, back to you. Let's say you got Josh Gaddis for a media avail this week, and you were told you could ask him any question, only one question though. But nothing was off limits, and you want a real answer. You want him to be successful. We're all Michigan fans here, so this isn't gonna be douchey. But there's a question that needs to be asked. What would that question be if you were given that opportunity?
So I can't be douchey. I can't just ask him if he's in over his head. I would want to know what they're seeing in practice and why, what is happening in practice, because Jim Harbaugh talked about it a couple weeks ago against Iowa. They're making a lot of strides, and then all the guys kind of reference what's happening in practice. So I would want to know what's happening in practice and where is the disconnect between practice and game day, and what they are doing as coaches to get past that. Because if they can't, if all we're ever going to talk about, if we're going to be at the Ohio State game late in the year and Jim Harbaugh is going to be talking about, well, all the great things that they're doing in practice, and we're not seeing it on Saturdays, then what are we even talking about here? So I'd really like to know where that disconnect is and how they are working every day to get past that. What are the things that they're trying to do with individual players, position groups, and the offense overall because honestly, that's what the rest of the season comes down to. Penn State, Notre Dame, Michigan State, you want to throw Indiana on the road on there, and Ohio State, is if they can't execute under the lights or, in front of the big crowd like they're supposedly doing in practice, then we might as well just, pack up a suitcase, check out of the hotel and be done with it, because if they're a 4-loss team at least if they don't figure out how to get their offense to translate.
I know you've been covering this team for about 20 years. I have, we've all, you and I have been fans longer than that, but you've been covering them professionally with sources for that long. I've probably subscribed, since that's about the dawn of the internet era. So whether it's Sam Webb, yourself, Chris Ballas, Tom Beaver, John Borton, I've probably subscribed to all of these various websites for that long. And you hear the practice murmurs, the inside the forts, web rumblings, all the little things that we hear from insiders. I don't recall in all of that time, Michael, this much of a disconnect between what people said they saw inside being at practice or from talking to people who were there compared to what we see on game day. Can you recall any disconnect this large in your career?
No, I mean, in the moment, it doesn't feel like we've ever seen anything like that, but I feel like every season there's a little bit of, well, this is what's looking so good. And I mean, how many times, let's just go through players that have generated a lot of hype, and then we've seen nothing. I mean, earlier, in the spring, and if we're talking about this season, Mike Sainristil is going to be the guy. Donovan Jeter, what the hell has happened to Donovan Jeter? I mean, the guy's not even playing anymore, and this is supposed to be one of your projected starters coming out of fall camp.
And the thing is, when they went to Sainristil, he actually ran one of the best routes on a third down we have seen a receiver run for a conversion this entire season, and we haven't seen him again.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that, but I'll just tell you that I think in the moment we're thinking this is an anomaly and we've never seen anything like this. I think you and I are both smart enough to realize that this type of disconnect happens every single year. And not that any of the fans ever want to listen to it or think that anybody in the media, I mean, we're all spoiled brats and the whole thing. But when you don't allow any access whatsoever to practice, and everything that we get from players, coaches, and the few insiders that can smuggle information out of practice. This is what you're going to ultimately have. You're going to have high expectations because coaches always, pump up their players, pump up their team, and you're going to be left with this hollow feeling because no one has any idea. Maybe if we had been in there, we'd seen like the offensive line struggling. Maybe if we'd been in there, we'd been able to see like, wow, Shea Patterson, just something's off right now. Maybe we would have seen that Michigan wasn't really sure who their number one running back was. All those different things. Instead, we figure them out game to game. And so then you're left with a lot of mouths agape 4, 5, 6 games in the year because, wow, this is what we were told and this is what we're seeing. And so I think that's where a lot of where the discrepancy comes in.
Brandon, back over to you. If you got Josh Gaddis one-on-one and you were told no question was off limits as long as it's not from a douchey premise, but you could ask any question you wanted and get a straight-up answer, but it would only be one question. What's the question you would ask, Brandon?
I was just going to say, can I get like 7 or 8? Because I got a few. Man, I don't know. I guess if I can only have one, it might have a couple of different parts to it. I'll try to word it as efficiently as I can. It would just be about the offense and what exactly is Jim Harbaugh's role? How involved is he from play to play, from week of preparation up to the game, and does he have final say? Is Josh Gaddis really driving the whole car? I mean, I think that would be, and that kind of goes back to Michael's. Before he found out he couldn't be a douche, is he in over his head type of thing? But that's what it's felt like. I mean, it really has felt like, a guy who's never called plays before, and then it just doesn't really seem to get the idea of play to play and series to series and quarter to quarter, and then at the end of the day, you've got a game plan. It just hasn't looked like that. And on the flip side, when we go to our football 101 with Devin Gardner on Tuesdays, the event that Michael has set up. We see some plays where it's like Josh Gaddis is doing the best he can and Shea is flat out not executing. Or Josh Gaddis has a nice play dialed up here and the running back absolutely whiffs on the pass pro, so Shea gets smacked or he has to run out of the pocket and the play can't develop. It seems to be that there's always just something missing, and that at the end makes the offense look like it's looked, and of course the blame then falls on Josh Gaddis. But maybe it's not him. Maybe it is so many of these other little things adding up that you just wonder exactly what's going on in there. So I guess this kind of all ties together. You know, if we were able to see what's going on at practice, if we could really get an explanation as to why there is a disconnect or how that disconnect is happening, and then also like the actual involvement and development of the offense itself, like how does that come together and how does it manifest on game day? Because it just hasn't looked like anything we were told, and part of that goes back to not being able to see, and part of that goes back to coach speak, and you know, the list goes on and on. I think it would definitely be that would be a fun conversation. That would be a fun conversation to have. And if he had to answer truthfully, maybe it would shed some light on what we're seeing.
What happens if they go 0-2 in this stretch, Brandon?
Ooh. Man. They're 5-3. I mean, that's bad. It's, the Big Ten hopes and wishes are gone. Absolutely gone. Any semblance for anything meaningful beyond that is gone, with losses to the only 3 teams with a pulse. I guess you can throw Iowa in there. I haven't been that impressed with them, but if you go on the road and lose to Penn State again, you're now 0-8, as an underdog, and still can't beat a ranked team on the road, still can't beat a team with comparable talent. Same thing with Notre Dame. I mean, I know that's a home game, but they're a good team with the comparable talent. They're another ranked team that you just can't get over. This narrative that is following Jim Harbaugh week to week is absolutely immense at that point, and might be the tipping point. It really might be the tipping point. I mean, I don't know if it would be. I don't think Jim Harbaugh is on the hot seat for being fired or anything like that, but I think he would have to take a very, very long, hard look in the mirror about what he's doing at Michigan and where his program is in year 5.
Michael, the reason I think these 2 games go together, even though one of them's not a conference game, is because if you lose to Penn State Saturday, you're not going to come out and tell your fans with still 5 games to go, this thing is over, right? You've got a primetime home game the next week. You got big-time home games against Michigan State and Ohio State, and you don't want their fans, particularly Ohio State fans, because who knows where Michigan State will be at that point, but you don't want Ohio State fans taking over your stadium on national TV. That doesn't just get your coach in hot water, but your AD and the entire athletic department. So you need a selling point. All right, hey, we can still make a New Year's Six bowl, a major bowl game. Well, it would seem that selling point goes out the window if you lose that game to Notre Dame, because now you are sitting at 5-3 with still a couple of difficult games to go. You'd have to win out. It's still not even a guarantee you'd win out at 9-3 and get to a New Year's Six bowl, right? You see what I'm saying? So to me, I think these 2 games as a package deal, from a branding standpoint, from a fan base standpoint, I think they're intertwined. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you make some good points. I think if you lose these 2 games, if you lose to Penn State, you're effectively out of the Big Ten race. You can't accomplish at least 2/3 your goals. You can't win the Big Ten. You can't go to the college football playoff. You could still beat Ohio State. So I guess you could still accomplish 2 out of 4. But no, it puts a lot of pressure on Jim Harbaugh and the direction of this program if you were to lose this game, because if you lose this game, that gorilla, that silverback gorilla that's on your shoulders right now about the road record and all this thing, I mean, that narrative just gets stronger. The national media, mocks Michigan more. Opposing coaches have more ammunition to use on the recruiting trail. It just makes Jim Harbaugh's job that much harder. And, I know there's cases out there. I'm not a big fan of those cases of say, Dabo Swinney that needed 7 years to get to the college football playoff. Those are the rare exceptions. And, if your job gets harder after year 4 and after year 5, I don't really see that you're eventually getting to the promised land. So that's the obstacle about Penn State. If you lose to Notre Dame, then yeah, I mean, you're going to say, hey, here are 2 programs very similar, both in the Midwest, both with higher academic standards, both recruiting the same type of athletes, and in back-to-back years on the road and now here at home, Michigan lost to that team. And so, where does Michigan fall in the pecking order of not college football, but even like the best teams in the Midwest? And so they would be behind Ohio State, they'd be behind Notre Dame, and they'd be probably behind Penn State. And that's not a place that Michigan and who knows about Wisconsin? What is Harbaugh? He's 1-1. against Wisconsin in his career. No, I guess he's 2-1 against. No,
1-2.
1-2.
Yeah.
Someone do some math for me here.
1-2
against Wisconsin. So you could maybe make the argument he's behind Wisconsin. That's just not a familiar place to be in. I think on the flip side, and I don't know if this is your next question or not, but what would these 2 wins mean to Michigan?
Yeah.
I think we get a little bit knocked that we're always taking the negative connotation. Let's talk about the positive connotation. If they go to Happy Valley, they go to State College this weekend and beat Penn State and get their monkey off their back, I don't care if it's 3-2. That would be a monumentous
biggest win of the Harbaugh era, I believe.
Harbaugh.
Yep,
absolutely, 100%. And then if he follows it up with a win over Notre Dame, then it'd be the best back-to-back weeks that Michigan football has had in. God, you'd have to go back to probably 2006. And when I don't know, maybe when they beat Notre Dame back then, and whoever they followed it up with the following week, Michigan State or someone like that. So that would be the best back-to-back weekends for Michigan football in more than a decade. So I'm going to try to think a little bit about what they could accomplish, because if they do that, the Wisconsin game, I don't know. We saw that happen with Ohio State, the Purdue and Iowa losses and how bad they were. It might still keep them out of the playoff, but you go into November with these 2 wins, and you're being talked about as one of the top 8 teams in college football, an outside chance of the college football playoff, and everything just kind of sets it up. And now we're praising Jim Harbaugh. I would love to be in a situation where next week and really in 2 weeks, Steve, we're having we're doing your Michigan podcast, and we're talking about the great job that Jim Harbaugh did. I'm honestly sick and tired of talking about the negativity. I'm sick and tired of being critical, but that's where we are.
We can only respond to the content they give us, brother. That's all we can do. We can't produce the content. They do that.
So many people think that we're trying to, I want this guy gone, or I want to see Michigan. No one wants to see Michigan win more than the 3 of us. And certainly as a Michigan grad, as someone that grew up in the 90s and watched Michigan beat Ohio State, I want nothing more than Michigan to be successful again. And I would love if in 2 weeks that's the conversation piece we're having.
So I won't ask for specific game predictions. I know you guys are still formulating those, and you'll release those later this week. Let's look at these 2 games as a body of work. Multiple choice final question. Do they A, win them both, B, lose them both, or C, split? And if you think it's C, you don't have to give us which one it is unless you want to. What do you think is the most likely scenario here? Brandon, I'll start with you.
Oh, boy. I mean, I'm going to go right back to what Michael just said we hate doing, but I feel like they're going to lose them both. I can't. I mean, my heart is punching me like, what are you doing? Why are you saying that? Like, that's how I feel. But my head is just like, there's no way. There's just no way that what we've seen is going to equate to 2 wins in those types of situations. I mean, I said it earlier to my own self, like the previous games don't have anything to do with this game coming up this weekend in Happy Valley. But at the same time, Jim Harbaugh's line again is after 3 times something keeps happening, it's a habit. Well, it's been 7 times you've lost as an underdog, and the road wins against a ranked opponent. All the stuff we've already talked about a million times. Like, I just don't see how suddenly that changes, especially when the offense is doing what it's doing and we don't really know what we're going to see. And Penn State's playing pretty well, and they're going to be jacked, and they are going to be juiced, and that place is going to be on fire for a win. And I just think that's a really, really tough place to go in and get a W. And then against Notre Dame, I mean, I know it's in Ann Arbor, but I've been pretty impressed with Notre Dame. I think they're better than I thought they were going to be. Ian Book is a better quarterback than I thought he was, and they have just as much talent as Michigan does from top to bottom. So I just have not seen enough out of that offense specifically, and really in flashes, the defense, like good teams that go on the road and beat Penn State and good teams that beat a top 10 undefeated Notre Dame team don't give up 25 points to Illinois. They just don't. And they're able to do more on offense, and they're able to exploit weaknesses and use the athletes that they have, and I just have not seen it. So if I have to pick one of those 3 scenarios, I think they lose them both. And I hate saying it, but that's what I feel.
Michael, same question to you. Which of those 3 scenarios do you think is the most likely these next 2 weeks?
I think they lose them both. I mean, I think of the most likely scenario, they lose them both. I agree with Brandon. Until they go out there and win the road game against a ranked opponent, I don't think it's makes sense for anybody that is in this business to predict a victory. in that type of scenario. And then the following week, I mean, Notre Dame has played a couple of ranked opponents, Georgia, and they looked like they had, the same speed and athleticism that an SEC team does. Then they played Virginia, and they beat those guys. They beat USC just this past week. USC still has some of the best collection of talent in college football, even though they don't know how to use it properly. I mean, this is a team that's won a couple of tough games already, and then dropped a game at Georgia, but a tough place to play, and looked good doing it. So, yeah, I mean, I think out of the three scenarios, it's more likely that they go 0-2. I will tell you that the second most likely scenario, I think, is that they go 2-0. Because I think if they win this game in Penn State on Saturday, it means that they've figured a lot of things out. Mm-hmm. And if they figure those things out offensively, I think they come back in front of a raucous home crowd.
I agree with
big
that.
House tonight. Yep. And I think that they just go out there and they're playing their best football and they find a way to beat Notre Dame. So 0-2 or 2-0. I think that's what's going to happen. I really don't. I don't see the 1-1 scenario. I just don't.
I agree with that. I think it's really difficult for them to pick themselves off the mat if they lose on Saturday. I mean, with game day there and everything else, and all of the there's no other real headline game in college football this weekend. So all of the national media take everything will be on writing some form of existential consequence for a loss there. And I just don't know, with Notre Dame kind of knowing who it is, with a bye week kind of laying there in the weeds to get healthy, I don't know how you get yourself back up off the mat to say, hey guys, let's go impress some Citrus Bowl scouts. I don't see how you do that. So I'm with you. I think it's just like I don't think Penn State's going to win Saturday on a last-second field goal. Like, I think Penn State's winning by a touchdown or more, or Michigan's winning the game. Like, to me, you don't take Michigan +9 unless you think they're going to win, because I think that either Michigan clicks and puts it together and wins outright on the money line, or we just kind of see the game most people expect to see. So I'm kind of with you on that as well, Michael. Both of you guys, thank you so much for joining us again this week here on Michigan Podcast. Great stuff. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
These are exciting times at Wolverine Digest. You can see right there, we are now affiliated with Sports Illustrated. We are the official Michigan channel for SI.com. So that, of course, when you're going to be linked up with one of the great brands in all of sports, when it comes to sports media and Sports Illustrated, and you're covering one of the great brands in all of sports, the Michigan Wolverines, you need to up the ante. Now, you can see right there on our title page, myself, Michael Spath, Brandon Brown, we are bringing you loads of content each and every day. I can't even keep up all day long with the content that we are producing on a regular basis. So if you want to get all of this content, it is right now free. Everything there, all the video, audio, the podcasts, the analysis, commentary, all of it is free for you at wolverinedigest.com. This week's Twitter poll results, we asked you, do you think Michigan will win at Penn State this Saturday? And a confident bunch, 19% of you said yes. I think that number is a little high. That surprised me how high it was. 81% of you who have obviously been watching this season said no. So here's hoping the Flights of Fancy crowd gets one right for a change. I'm tired of it. I mean, I don't care if the coach is Jim Harbaugh, Jack Handy. I just want to win again. It's 15 years. I want to matter. I'm tired of being meme material. I'm tired of being trolled by my favorite shows. So I can't watch them because I know what they're going to say is true, and it's going to irritate me, and it's going to take and suck all the fun and enjoyment out of it. I just want this to be fun again. I just need that. And I know I'm not alone. I know a lot of you agree. Hence the pessimism. Let's get to this week's question of the week from Ben, who says, when's the last time Michigan has won a game on the road against a good team? Well, remember last year, they went to East Lansing when Michigan State was ranked. Now, Michigan State ended up not being that good of a team, but they were ranked in the top 25 at the time, and they broke the streak because Michigan hadn't beaten a ranked team on the road at all since 2006. Until that game. So I guess we'll count that. That's a ranked team. It was a rivalry game on the road. That's a good road win, no doubt. Now, this one would be better. In fact, I would go so far as to think I think this would be the biggest win of the Harbaugh era if they were to get it. It changes so many narratives about the program, about the season. And that's the thing, guys. I don't want any more existential angst. I want to talk football. But they have to give us permission to do that. And we don't play the games and coach the players. They do. They have to give us permission to just focus on the moment and enjoy the here and now by their play. It's the failure to deliver in too many of these kinds of spots that leads to the existential angst and the frustration. So all we can do is react. We don't control the content that is provided. The program does. All we can do is react to the content they give us. I'd like some new content. I'd like Michigan to exceed my expectations. For once. And they can do that by winning in Happy Valley on Saturday. Thanks to all of you for tuning into this week's episode of Michigan Podcast. Don't forget, whether it's YouTube or Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, however you access us each week, like, subscribe, 5-star reviews, rate, whichever your platform gives you the opportunity to do, please do. The more of those we get, it certainly helps us to grow what we're trying to do here at Michigan Podcast, as does your word of mouth, your willingness to share how much you like what we're doing here with other Michigan fans that you know around the country. Also want to thank our friends at Detroit Sports Podcast for helping us to get the word out about this each and every week. We are back at it again next week after the reckoning there in State College. Something wicked this way comes, or is it the win that turns the season around? We will find out. Until then, go Blue.